Do you ever wish that the front panel of your virtual pinball cabinet was just, I don't know, a little more authentic and the lights flashed and lit up exactly how it did in the arcade? Well, on today's video, I'm going to show you how to do that, so stick around. So if you've been following along with the build, you know that we have our direct output framework set up and we have all these toys inside this cabinet going at the right times when we're playing a game. Now we can use that DOF to also control our lighting on the front panel as well. So for things like when we put enough credits into a game to be able to start it, you can have the start button flash on and off to let you know that it's ready to start. Or if a table never actually had a real plunger and it just had a launch ball button, we could have it so that those games would light up the launch ball and games that didn't have it would leave it off. So we're going to do things like that in today's video, and we're going to make sure that all these are lit up, including our coin door ones, which are actually 6.3 volts. So we're going to turn those into LEDs, and that way everything on the front panel could be 12 volts. So let's get started. Now, by the end of the video, all of the lights on the front panel are going to be converted to LED, or light emitting diodes. So the first thing we need to know about is the polarity. So what you do is you get yourself a 12 volt power supply and you go ahead and put the red and black on either side of the lamp circuit on the buttons on the back. And if it lights up, then that is the correct wiring for positive and negative. Now, if it doesn't light up, all you're going to do is reverse the polarity and test it again. And if it lights up, then you know that that is the correct polarity. Now, you can either make sure that the wiring goes to it properly, or if you want to have like a daisy chain and look a little better in the cabinet, you can take the button apart and simply pull the bulb out, spin it 180, and that will reverse the polarity so the wiring can look a lot cleaner. So let's test that. So in this example, looking from the front of the cab, the left side gets the positive and the right side gets the ground for it to light. However, if I go to the extra ball button and set it up the same way, when I touch, right now I'm touching, it's not lighting up. So if I switch the polarity and put the positive on the right side this time, you can see that that is the polarity on that one. So I'll take that bulb out and reverse it and just make them all the same so that I can do the wiring a little bit cleaner in the back. And then after testing the exit button, it seems to have the polarity switch too. So rather than switch both of these, I'm just going to switch the top one, and that will make it so that we want to have the ground or black wire on the left side of the buttons and the red positive wire on the right side. Now, the stock light bulbs that are in the coin door returns are usually 6.3 incandescents, or it could be a 5 volt LED. Either way, we want to convert these to 12 volts, so let's take the stock ones out. So this just pulls out. And I've got these 12 volt amber LED bulbs that we're going to replace, and they literally just push back in, and same thing. If you don't light up in the wiring you have, you can just rotate this to change the polarity. Now, one thing that you might have an issue with is this part of the LED bulb might be a little bigger than the original. So if that's the case, you may have to take a file or a little Dremel tool and just open up the little hole for this bulb to go in. There we go, that fits. Okay, and then go ahead and do the other one too. All right, so now that I've got those bulbs switched over to 12 volt LEDs, I've got the original harness on the coin door here, and I've found the wires going to the bulbs are yellow, and yellow with a white stripe. Now, based off the polarity of which way I put in my LED bulb, I've got my ground on the yellow with the white wire, and that way if I touch the red on here, you can see that those lights are lighting up there, and man, do they look really nice and bright because of those LEDs, and it's an amber color. I think that's even brighter than before. Sweet. So now we know the polarity for these here. Okay, same thing with the launch ball button. I've got the red positive on the right side of the button and left is black negative. So now that we know the polarity for all this and everything switched over to 12 volt LED, let's go ahead and run a red positive daisy chain to all these, and then we'll tackle the negatives after in a sec. So I'm going to tap into the yellow positive and negative wires for the coin return bulbs. So I'll just clip these and put on a spade connector. Again, I highly recommend that you install some heat shrink tubing so that once you've made your connections, you can put it over top and get it covered up. In my budget virtual pinball cab, I had one of these come off and touch another wire and it fried my KL25Z board, so cheap insurance. Now there are going to be some fuses for the grounds for the start button and the launch button, but the other 4 bulbs won't have a fuse. So I'm going to add a 5 amp inline fuse on the power for all of these bulbs, just as an added protection. I don't want this thing burning up because I cheaped out. Now this might be a good time to talk about our power consumption. So if you may or may not remember, I put a 12 volt, 10 amp power supply from Cleveland Software Designs way back at the beginning when it was at the bottom of the cabinet. And it is now powering our gear motor, shaker motor, knocker, solenoids, blower fan, and now our LED lights. Now that sounds like a lot, and it kind of is, but you got to remember that the toys are not all constantly on. They only flicker on and off in pulses. The lights are going to be on mostly, but they're going to be probably 0.1 amps, 0.2, 0.3 amps. So believe it or not, we're going to be able to give this a test and see if it works. It should be enough to power everything on. Now, it is probably at certain times kind of maxing it out though, so I may probably upgrade that to either a 20 or maybe even 30 amp because it doesn't get much more expensive when you go up to the higher amps, and replace that off camera. All right, now we're on to the negative black wires. Now, there are going to be some buttons that are going to be daisy chained and left on all the time whenever there's power. So I'm not going to really show you too much of that. It's exactly the same as what I just did with the red positive wire, except the other side of the button. So the extra ball button, the exit button, and the 2 coin return buttons are going to get hardwired so they have power whenever the cabinet is on. And then when I get to the start button and launch button, we've got to put the negative ground wire to our MOS 8 so that we can get DOF to control when they come on and off and do all their fancy things. So let's put this on now. All right, so the start button ground negative wire is going to go all the way to the second MOS 8 board, and we're going to plug that into port 15. Okay, and then the ground for the launch ball button is going to get routed up to the MOS 8 board, and we are going into the very last port, which is port 16. All right, here we go, time to test it. When I put the power for the PC on, it's gonna turn on the power strip for the power supply, and we should have our extra ball, exit button, and our 2 coin returns light up. And we're not gonna have start or launch ball because we haven't set that up in DOF yet. So here we go, and hope there's no magic smoke escapes. Hey, there we go. Gotta love it when that plan goes through. Okay. On to show you how to get these to turn on and flash. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna open up Dude's Cab Configurator. We're gonna go to Connect. Now we're gonna go to Output Cards. Okay, we're gonna turn on ports 15 and 16. And then we're gonna scroll on down. 15 is gonna be our start button. Okay, so we can go to Output Presets. We can go to LEDs or light bulbs. They're probably about the same thing. So LEDs. Looks like you could invert this, maybe if the polarity is wrong or something, eh? Then we're gonna go down to 16, and that is our launch ball. Launch button. And we're gonna set this to LEDs as well. And then we're gonna go up to Send Config and save to memory to make sure it saves. All right, once you've saved that, you should be able to go to the front of the cab and turn them on, and there's our launch ball button. Sweet, and then here is our start button. Perfect, so that's all hooked up properly. So we can kick out of this. Now we gotta go to the old VP Universe config tool. There it is right there. Click on anything here to initiate the sign-in process. Okay, make sure you're on the right cabinet in case you have multiple cabinets. And just like all of the other videos for all the toys, if you haven't put in a Dude's Cab yet, then you're gonna have to do that. And once you have that, you can go down to Port Assignments. And you're gonna go up here and click and make sure that you're on the right pull down for the right board. So this is the Dude's Cab. And then you're gonna scroll all the ways down. So if you're wondering where all this came from, I've got great videos for all of these different parts. Just look in our playlist and figure out which one you need to watch and figure out for yourself. Okay, port 15. Look at it right at the top there waiting for us. Start button. Okay, and then port 16, you actually have 3 different options here. So launch button is going to light that button whenever there is a ball waiting in the plunger lane ready for you to shoot, while authentic launch ball is going to be more like an arcade. So some games didn't actually have a plunger and they just had a trigger, like in a gun for like Indiana Jones, or they only had a launch ball button. So if it's one of those games, those are the only times that this launch ball button is going to be lit up. So you can decide whichever you want. Personally, it doesn't really matter to me, but I kind of think I want to have it more authentic than anything, so we're going to stick to this one right here. Once you've done that, go ahead up to Update, and then Generate Config. Okay, once you've done that, go to where your file is, double left click on that, left click and drag, right click and copy. Then you're going to go to your C drive, direct output, and you're going to right click in this folder right here. And it's going to ask, do you want to replace them? Say yep. And we can go ahead and try this. All right, so I've got Indiana Jones loaded up here, and I've got the SSF system off so we don't have any copyright issues, and there is no credits in there right now, so the start button's not lit. So let's put some credits in. There we go. There it's flashed and start, telling us it's ready to go. Notice the launch ball's not ready to go, but when we start a game, there we go. Look at that. Launch ball's telling us we're ready to go, and it's still flashing on the start because I actually have 1 credit. Must have gotten 2 presses there. So, launch ball, then it goes out and you're playing your game. Sweet. Now, when we leave a game and go back to Popper, you're going to notice that we have lost our start button. Now, remember that DOF takes about 10 to 15 seconds to reload, so while you're trying to switch tables and you don't have your clickers yet either, oh, there you go. That's in, so DOF is engaged and now that start button is lit. Now, we don't have the launch ball button, and I don't know if I'm just going to leave it like that, but I kind of feel like going into the pinup menu in the user configuration for VPU config tool and seeing if we can get that to light when we're in pinup popper. So let's look into that. Okay, now in order to get that launch ball button to be lit up during pinup popper, you're going to go up to the little home symbol, scroll down until you see table configuration section. And then we got to search for our pinup menu. There it is here, pinup menu. And then if you scroll down, this is all the stuff that is going to be working on the pinup menu. Now, if you notice that they have the start button and launch ball button on already, but the authentic ball, which is the one I picked, is not actually there. So if you do the authentic ball like me, you're going to have to type in capital ON, or if you use launch ball, it'll be lit up already for you. And then make sure you are not doing it on the public configuration, you are just using the user configuration. And then you can go up to update, generate config, go to your folder, double left click and select, drag it over, right click copy, go back up to C drive, direct output, right click paste, replace, and then you can open up pinup popper and see how it works. All right, once again, takes about 10 to 15 seconds. Hey, there we go. All of our buttons lit up nicely. Perfect. What more could you ask for? And man, am I really digging those user configurations. I got to delve into that more and find some more content for you guys. All right, that's a wrap in another video from Way of the Wrench, this time on how to get all your front panel lights all lit up and flashing like a real pinball cabinet. If you have any questions about what we did, put it down in the comment section below and I will help you out as much as possible. A very special thank you to Emoto from Marco Specialties for providing all of the authentic pinball parts we used today. So all the buttons and the coin door and all the legs and trim. This thing looks amazing. Thank you very much, Emoto. What's next? I think it is finally time to start putting some flashy addressable LEDs on this thing, get some underglow and behind the back box glow. It's going to look amazing. If you haven't already, why don't you join us on Instagram so you can see what's going on in the shop in between videos. And until next time, take it easy.